there. And we're finna go live on Facebook. 3, 2, 1. Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Facebook family, y'all come on in. I was trying to do 2 or 3 more things. Of course, my assistant don't work on Tuesdays. Wednesday. What is it, Wednesday? She don't work on Wednesday. Even though I don't have an assistant, I just keep saying that. Make myself sound good. Y'all come on in, like and share this video, this post. We're gonna have a candid conversation this morning about the reopening of schools to a full capacity, the kids that want to come to school. So y'all come on, like and share. I need you all guys to share. You can find it on your Facebook. If it's not, is it showing?
It's not showing.
It's not showing. Is it live over here? It should be. Oh man, I'm unable to start the video. Hold on. Yeah. Hold on. I can edit it all out on the video. What? Hold on, guys. We're gonna get started in just a second. Probably had to refresh the screen. Refresh the screen. Paul, you ready, ain't it?
It actually calmed me down a little bit.
It did.
It calmed me down.
Good Lord, no.
Yeah, we go.
You're okay. That calmed me down a little bit.
All right, don't talk.
Calmed me down a lot. Shh.
There we go. We're live now. Hey guys, sorry about that. We're a few minutes late, but welcome to the Kitchen Table Conversation. Of course, once again, we're not at the kitchen table, but we're still going to have a candid conversation about the face-to-face reopening of schools here in Tuscaloosa City Schools. We have some dynamic guests on today, Dr. Reverend Matthew Wilson and Mr. Paul Rollins, concerned citizen right here in Tuscaloosa. So, like and share. Sharing is caring, as they say. We're gonna give you a couple seconds to come on in. Hope everybody's having a great day. I know it's a different time for kitchen table conversation, but we felt like this conversation was necessary to have at this appropriate time. I was reached out to, and we're ready to rock and roll with this important conversation about the face-to-face reopening of Tuscaloosa City Schools. So y'all come on in, like and share this. So to get started, I want to give you guys a couple seconds, a minute or so, to introduce yourselves to the audience that may not know who you are, and just give us a synopsis of who you are and why you're here today. Remember, no hitting the table, no speaking loud. I mean, speak loud. I'm sorry. I had to tell my guests the other day, stop hitting the table. So yeah, so you can start, Mr. Rollins.
No problem. I'm Paul Rollins, Jr. I'm just a concerned citizen, a stakeholder in the community. And I'm just here to voice my opinion. I would have loved to voice it last night at the school board meeting. However, there was not a school board meeting last night. It was, I guess, delayed, postponed, suspended, what have you. So I decided that some way, somehow, my voice would be heard before the 19th of October, when these kids are supposed to go back to full-time face-to-face. Appreciate you having me here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for coming on.
Always, Matthew, appreciate you being here, Doc.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Pastor Matthew Wilson. I am District 1 Board Representative, and I too am here because we're all concerned about school reopening, and we want to make sure that whatever happens in our communities and all of our schools, that our kids are safe, that our teachers are safe, and that there's an environment that is conducive for learning. I believe that we're in a time now that is abnormal, and abnormal times call for abnormal measures. And I'm happy to be here with my cohort, Mr. Rollins this morning to discuss and answer any questions that you all might have concerning the reopening of school.
All right, thank you guys for that introduction. We are social distance. We did wash our hands. Now, we're not 6 feet apart, but they have their mask on. I'm gonna do a lot of talking and I sweat a lot, so I'm not gonna wear my mask today. But they got theirs on to protect me and themselves, so we're good on that part. Let's start out with the first question, and I'm gonna throw it to you, Mr. Wilson.
Okay.
With the staggered reopening of schools, how does that look different than what's gonna happen next week?
Well, the staggered opportunity of schools where kids were given 2 days per week and 2 days for virtual, and then that Friday was used for extensive cleaning, that now has been taken away, and all of our students that chose to go to school face-to-face, that signed up for face-to-face at this moment will go 5 days a week instead of going staggered for 2 days a week and virtual two other days a week.
Okay, so we're going face to face. That means 5 days a week starting next week. How's that gonna look?
Right now it's going to look pretty rough. It was stated to us that we will not be able to social distance in our schools, which has been a big issue to me. And many of you looked at the video that was given yesterday. The video said to practice your own social responsibility of social distancing. So I'm intrigued, and I want to know what parents are going to decide, because if we can't social distance, I'm afraid that many parents, Mr. Pelt, might decide to keep their children home because of the fact that they may feel that they can, since we recognize we can't.
Who put that video, not to cut you off, but who put that video out?
There's a video from the Tuscaloosa City Schools.
The Tuscaloosa City Schools is putting the responsibility of social distancing on the kids that's going back to school next week.
The video states that we're asking you to practice social responsibility.
During school.
Yes, sir.
How is that, Paul, how is that even possible? To ask our 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th graders, middle schoolers, to practice social distancing when it's no
social responsibility.
Social responsibility. I guess that means at home, or is it at school? What's the clear message? Because the clear message I'm getting out of this is you on your own.
The problem is,
tell me if I'm wrong now. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm trying to get some clarity.
the issue I'm seeing, I mean, I've spoken to some administrators, and they were actually fine with this staggered schedule.
Mm-hmm.
It was working. Everybody understands the kids need to be inside the school, learning one-on-one, if possible. And the administrators were comfortable with the staggered schedule.
Mm-hmm.
However, they were terrified of the full-time face-to-face,
Mm-hmm.
because you know you cannot social distance. The superintendent has stated, leading up to this point, in the first meetings that have gone back for the last 2 months, there is no possible way, it's not humanly possible, for once we go back full-time face-to-face, that we can social distance. And however, in the same breath, he would still say, however, we're gonna follow CDC guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
Well, part of CDC guidelines is practicing social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you know you can't social distance, what harm is there in just sticking with the staggered schedule? I see too many issues coming from this. Once you put these babies back in school and we can't social distance, you're setting yourself up for some major issues. You have football teams.
Mm-hmm.
You got University of Alabama right down the street. We know the money that comes to the city from University of Alabama football. They have a stadium that seats 100,000 people. But on Saturdays, there's no tailgating. And they're only allowing 20,000 people in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They're not saying, I know you can't social distance. Come on in, let's fill it up anyway and come in at your own risk. They're saying we're not allowing in more than 20,000. you have issues going on already at the schools we are on staggered. We had a whole football team, Northridge football team, had to quarantine.
What? You said Northridge football team had to quarantine.
Northridge football team. You
When
have
was this?
last week when they had to cancel their game against Hewlett.
Oh, that's what.
So you have 80-something students, and going off of the suggestion of the superintendent, I wouldn't say it was a plan. The initial paperwork that he had presented as a plan, the board didn't accept because they weren't satisfied with it.
Mm-hmm.
He had some stipulations in and said, well, we have this percentage of the school or classroom to come into either being affected or quarantined. We're going to suspend school for a week or what have you. Well, if you have 84 players that are quarantined, unless all 84 players are in the same classroom, being taught by the same coach or the same teacher, going home, staying by themselves, with no other siblings or in the Tuscaloosa city school system, okay, I can see you just saying, but football players, that's it. But with 84 kids out of a school, you have to, with reasonable knowledge, say, okay, well, the rest of that class, you all need to quarantine. These teachers need to quarantine. The kids at home, I may have a little brother that's in second grade, you need to quarantine. So with that, you should have a school that should be shut down right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with staggered schedule. That's not even going back face to face where you can't social distance. It's just, I'm upset in the superintendent, I'm upset in his staff, and I'm upset with the board members that have looked over the fact of pretty much common sense and decent knowledge of us not being able to safely protect our babies, our teachers, our janitors, and the staff, cafeteria staff, just the community in all, like your parents. When these kids come back home, they come back home to parents.
Mm-hmm.
If the kids are asymptomatic, the parents get this virus, and that's it. It's too much that can go wrong with this. The numbers that the city has been putting out are off. Don't give me a number of 10,000 and saying out of this 10,000, only 80 have been affected. Well, you don't have all 10,000 in school. If you have kids that already signed up for virtual, you have 5,000 on school.
So let me to Paul's caveat, Matthew, are the kids that because I'm looking at the chart now and it's saying we got 16 active cases, 243 quarantine students. Are those the students that are in school, or are we counting all the students as virtual? Or we don't know? Because if we're counting just all the students ain't in school, we got like what, 4,000 students is gonna be in school or something like that? A little less. So are we counting of those? Cause like Paul said, that's misleading if we're saying the 10,000, but only 4,000 in school. 5,000 in school, so we need to say 5,000. Out of 5,000 cases, we got 243 active. That means our infection rate will go up.
Yes, sir, you are exactly correct. It would actually go up. And when you use the 10,763 students, what you'll find out is that the percentage-wise for COVID cases will be low.
Mm-hmm.
We learned that in doing algebra.
Yeah.
Simple algebra. But if you take away those students who are not in school in this staggered schedule and keep them out of the numbers and move the numbers to half those students, then the percentage-wise should actually be doubled, which would show that we would perhaps be over the 5% threshold.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that because I was at the board meeting when was it the lawyer, whoever said if the 5% threshold, we exceed the 5% threshold for how many other days, then we'll have to look at something different and do something different.
Correct.
If we use the numbers that's correct, you say that 5,000, we'll be over the 5% threshold.
Correct.
And this will be going on 2 weeks because the data I seen from last week and this week, actually numbers are higher this week.
Yes, sir. Exactly. And so one thing that, I can say that I've advocated, and let's be real, I believe that all of our children learn better in school. One thing that Mr. Rollins and I, we sometimes disagree, because I talked about the opportunity for choice. I talked about the choice for those who wanted to go and the choice for those who did not want to go. And that's what I personally wanted to see for people. If you wanted to send your child, but I wanted to make sure that you had the right, accurate information so that when you send your child, you'll know exactly what you're sending your child to. Because yes, we have a total of 10,763 students, but we don't have half of that number of students are doing virtual all year long. Now, are there problems with virtual? Yes, I believe Mr. Appel, we was on the show earlier with me and Miss Williams and Miss Grant. We talked about, there are problems. You know, I'm a good friend of mine sent me a video of a school in Madison County that showed how the teachers were still teaching the students virtual and remotely at the same time, simultaneously. And I thought that was a good venture. But, you know, one thing that I think is so important is that the transparency be given so that the stakeholders and people in the system can make their own decision.
Now, we just addressed the student totals. Now let's go to some of these employee totals. Because I'm looking at 5.9% of employees are quarantined or what have you, quarantined. 14 active cases and 79 quarantine. So out of 1,400, that's well over 5%. Well over 5%. And that's almost 3 weeks in a row that we had over 5%. Why are we not shutting down with employees?
Ms. Pelt, I would go on to record to say that one thing that I've tried to advocate for was that I think that we have to make sure that our teachers are well taken care of and that precautionary measures are put in place in case those teachers are, having the COVID and have to be quarantined, making sure that their needs are met. Right now, as you are speaking and talking to us, and you have showed us these numbers, and by the way, if you want to know what's going on with the tracker, that Tuscaloosa City Schools has a tracker, so you can see the numbers. But if you want to really know the true numbers, take half of that 10,763 away, and then you'll be able to really have a clearer and accurate number of what it looks like going staggered and what it's going to be looking like going full face to face. And if the teachers are afraid, if the teachers are quarantined and isolated, then the students are still not going to get the type of instruction that I feel that they need so that we can have a premier institution.
So, Paul, from a community aspect, you're a community leader. With me and you worked on several projects together. We're actually working on a project tomorrow with a job fair together. We got a lot going on. How is the community reacting to this face-to-face? I know you've been talking. So how is our parents and our babies reacting to what's going to happen Monday? Because it's going to happen.
Me and Matthew, we talk a lot. Pretty much every day. And sometimes I joke with him, I tell him that I guess we split the seat. Because I get phone calls from parents that are concerned. Just within the last couple of days, I received a phone call from a parent that the child, she fears for her child going back to school. Because they can't social distance, and because of the age of the child, she knows her baby, and she's concerned about her child keeping that mask on all day long at school. And she's trying to find another way for her child to go virtually. And there was a question I was going to ask Brother Wilson. If the parents did not sign up for virtual learning for the semester, for the whole year, and they get to this point now and say, you know what, I'm sort of concerned. I'm not comfortable with my child going back to the school face-to-face full time. Can they revert back and go to virtual now, or is it too late?
According to what Dr. Darian presented to us, he said that it was too late and that changes will be made November 3rd, 2020. However, I have spoken to parents for and against. I'm gonna give two examples. One of my parents, a local pastor, I call his name, he told me that I could, Pastor Jordan Whitehead. Pastor Jordan Whitehead's children were scheduled to go back to school. Pastor Whitehead decided that he did not want his children exposed due to the pandemic, and he called the administration office and he talked to them, and he basically told them that, hey, you know, I don't feel safe and I'm not going to send my children back. And they said, do you not know that I have a slew of parents? So what I'm realizing, there are a slew of parents who do not want their kids to go back. Mm-hmm. And he talked about the ramifications of people being sued and the board being sued because of that. And the next thing he tells me is that he gets a call from an administrator letting him know that his child has been set up for virtual for the rest of the year. Now, every parent is not like that. And everybody can't do that. But he has been afforded that opportunity. Then just this morning, I received a call from a parent that said, hey, this virtual for my child is not working. Mm-hmm. So I want my child to be able to go back to school. So then and this is in my district. So then I said, well, okay, I did the same thing. I said, I'm giving you the number to administration. I said, what I want for you as parents, number one, is to have that choice. But what I want for each and every school is, and before I go there, for that choice, I want you to have that choice to go or not to go. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you decide to go, you know that you know what you're going into. That's why I want the numbers put out to you so you can make that decision. If you decide not to go, I want our school system to be able to give you what you need so that you can still be able to have a premier education in Tuscaloosa City Schools.
It just amazes me, and I'm just gonna be candid. It just amazes me that we have people in certain positions, and I don't know what position they are, making decisions based on, I don't want to say political ideology or self-ideology or what have you, but you can look at the data and see that these numbers in these cases are going up across the board. I looked at some data from DCH and other sites, and October 7th, I'm just going to go a week because I can go all the way back to October 3rd when we had 1,600 cases, and I go back to another week where we dropped down to like 500 cases. But just the last 2 weeks, 941 cases in Tuscaloosa. Mm-hmm. Today, yesterday, because they had the 14th, 1,117. What does that tell you? Increase in cases across the city.
Yeah.
And it's going to keep going. We're going into flu season. We're going into the autumn season. We get all these illnesses and what have you. And now we're going back face-to-face contact with school. Matthew, who is making these decisions? Who is, and I know you're on the board and I ain't trying to put you out there now, but who is making these decisions for, because like I told somebody the other night, most of the kids that's going back face-to-face, and I'm just going to be for real, is our babies. The babies in our community from the western cluster or the eastern cluster. Those are most of the kids that are going to be going back to school, because the ones that's virtual or the ones that's already face, they already in school, already know what they're going to do. So our babies is going back to school that has a lot of pre-existing conditions, asthma, diabetes, high blood pressure, what have you. They're going to go back into an environment where they're going to be around kids they've not been around before.
And I'll say this, we have
so who's making these decisions?
Listen.
Come on, talk to me, Matthew. Hey, we might as well put it out there.
I am an elected official.
Mm-hmm.
I've always vowed to stand up for what I believe, and I've always been a free thinker. Mm-hmm. You know, I stated my case the other day when it was told to us to vote to go back to school. I was 1 out of 8 votes that voted no. Mm-hmm. There were 2 others that voted no. 5 voted yes, which in terms, there was no vote to decide whether or not we would go back at a certain time, which it appeared that the decision was left up to the superintendent and not to the board after we made that vote. So then it would have been, if we had have made the vote to say, let's just say it was a 5-3 no vote, then the superintendent would have had to come back to the board again because we all voted no. But because of the fact that the vote, that I was outvoted and the vote was yes, then that meant that, hey, everything that was put into that motion gave the superintendent the power to determine what needed to happen going forward. Now, was that right? It then becomes about morals and ethics and how we do Robert Rules of Order.
I just, so basically the board, and the board gave the superintendent carte blanche on what to do and when to do it and how to do it when it comes to going back to school.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel about that, Paul? Come on, brother. It's 11 o'clock. We having lunch. We're at the table.
You know how I feel about it. It's a situation where people got to understand who's in charge, who runs the show. The board, that's an elected position. We elect the board. We have a superintendent. The superintendent is supposed to just make recommendations. The superintendent is not the boss. You make recommendations. The board hear the recommendations and the board vote. However, we elected that board. So in essence, we run the show as a community. We elect our officials to serve us on our behalf, and then they direct the superintendent as to what we want. But it seems to be upside down, where some feel like the superintendent runs the show and whatever the superintendent says goes. Now, looking at these meetings, it was a meeting on October 5th. Superintendent said, well, I listened to some doctors, and the doctor said the numbers are a little scary right now. Instead of us going back to school on the 12th, let's push it back a week and go back on the 19th. That's fine. However, the meeting that was on the 12th, that was usually scheduled for the 12th yesterday, never happened.
Why didn't it happen, Matthew?
That meeting was scheduled as a work session that was canceled.
Oh,
Okay, so
we got a caller. Caller, kitchen table conversation. You got a comment or question?
Yes, I want to call in because I'm very interested in our kids. You know, I'm just sitting here listening to Matthew, and I agree with each and every one of y'all what y'all saying because y'all making a lot of sense. But I just can't understand why did those other two city board members go against Matthew now when they, voted no to send them back. I mean, even though you're working in that area, in their area, you still should work with your own color people. I'm just being honest. We all black, and you might as well be honest. And y'all know when I call in, I'm gonna be honest about it. We could have made him hold on because, like y'all said, we don't know what the winter's gonna bring. They don't got a cure for it. They don't know what's gonna happen. Don't none of us know. So why risk our kids? They don't care if their kids die and they get insurance. But we care about our kids.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for calling in. Matthew, speak to that in a minute. Thank you, Ms. Jamison. Okay, we gonna.
And I'll say this one thing that we try to do.
Thank you for calling.
Thank you. I think that it's best to believe in making your vote based on your convictions. I can't tell nobody else how to vote. I only try my best to vote my conviction for my constituency in my area. And then I also tried to make a motion that gave everybody choice. That I was told that, hey, I might not need to be able to do. But I do, and I will say this, Mr. Pelt, what it looks like for me that it comes down to is a matter of choice. I think if you're not gonna have choice for one, then you don't have choice for all. But if you have choice for one, then you need to give choice for all.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, we say, well, we gave the people opportunity to call in and to decide that they didn't want their children to go back. If you got 500 students, or let's say 300 students, that calling in and parents to say, hey, I don't want my child to go back, but you have such a small window, it is no way that the secretary would be able to get all of those calls and to make all of those documentations notated so that she can send them off to the central office. So some people generally are going to be lost in the shuffle.
Mm. And that's so integral because the underserved kids are the one that always get lost in the shuffle. I'm just gonna say it like that. And without us having the opportunity to choose, is not advantageous to none of us.
And that's either way. See,
Either way,
that's
yeah.
either way. And one thing I'm gonna keep saying it. If you want your child to go, I want you to go. I want you to know the correct numbers. I want you to know everything that you need to know, so that if you decide to go, you go. All right. If you decide not to go, I want you to know why. I want you to know that you have that right, and that it is our responsibility as a board to make sure that you have what it is you need. I'm gonna tell you right now. Just like when you talk about the teachers. Let's talk about the teachers. You talk about the teachers.
Go ahead.
When you talk about the teachers, man, our teachers are doing a great job.
Yeah, awesome.
Listen, our teachers go hard for our children every day. I've been to not only schools in the Western Cluster, I've been to the magnet school. I've seen how principals are working hard. You know, one principal said one of her teachers got sick. This principal said, hey, I'll be the sub for the day. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of work that's going on. This principal said to me, we can do stagger, but my teachers are afraid about going face to face. I'm listening to them. But because of the fact of the way that vote went, there was no way that I could have counted other than what I'm saying, said then and said now. So just being honest with you, Mr. Pelt, our children are in some dire straits. And I'm gonna say this too. There's a need in our communities for that village to come back. Mm-hmm. We need that village. Mind changes can be one. You doing what you do. I saw you with your new van, and you're trying to, have people to be a part of what you're trying to do. But mind changes can't do it all.
No, we can't do everything.
If we got 10,763 students, and of that 10,763, 76% are African American, we need more than just one group. We need a village. Mm-hmm. And so my question, and I'm gonna say this: kids, not only are some kids getting left out, you got kids in the northern zone that are minority that still get lost in the shuffle, because guess what? We think that kids over there have it all made. Mm-hmm. But there's some kids that's mama having to work 16 hours a day and can't be there and be what's needed. But yet every time we look at the Northridge zone, we say, oh, they got everything. But they're struggling too. So then it comes to morals, principles, and ethics. It becomes to that. Just talking candidly, West Lawn Middle School football team was #1 last year. Mm-hmm. Undefeated. Mm-hmm. This year,
couldn't even fill a team.
We couldn't fill a team. I'm trying to figure out to myself, where are those kids? Mm-hmm. Who will want to be a part of a winning team? Mm-hmm. Where did they go? Where did these ninth graders go? See, that's why when it comes to, when me and Mr. Rollins talk, we talk about what's gonna help move our kids and our babies forward. Because we're invested in the community. We wanna see, the community soar. But guess what? But if you're in the middle of a pandemic and you have the lack of protective gear, you have the lack of social distancing, the lack of available substitutes, and the lack of a plan in the event of teachers having to quarantine.
That was my stop it right there. That was my next question. You said lack of. So what's the plan? What's either one of y'all know? What's the plan?
You have a schedule. The superintendent has always presented a schedule. He initially presented a plan way back when, before school was supposed to start. The board rejected their plan and said come back with something else. So I don't know if their plan is what they use as guidelines as far as when to shut the schools down, what have you. But leading all the way up to this decision, going back to again on October 5th, when they said we're gonna push it back a week because I spoke with some medical professionals and they say these numbers are a little high. Let's push it back a week. That's fine. You push it back a week, but the next meeting, which is scheduled for the 12th, which would have been yesterday, that's when you should come back as a superintendent and say, okay, here we are a week later. This is where our numbers are. The numbers have gone down, so now we feel a little bit more comfortable with possibly going back to school, if they so headstrong about going back to school. Or they'll say the numbers have gone up, we need to push it back another week. Or if the numbers are the same, you still need to push it back another week. Because if you push it back a week because the numbers were at 10, and it's still at 10, that means it's still a concerning number. But that meeting never happened. So again, I'm putting everything on the superintendent because the superintendent, there's no communication with the parents. Again, like Dr. Wilson says, if you want to send your child to school, that's fine. Just give these parents the correct information. Give them the real numbers. Let them know we can't social distance. And if they decide to send them back, send them back. Just inform the parents in the community what's going on. Be transparent. Give the real numbers. Don't give us the inflated numbers of the overall population and say we're only at 2% when we're actually at 6% or whatever.
So Matthew, what's the plan?
Mr. Pelt,
You sit on the board, you're elected official. I'm gonna hold you accountable. You my buddy, but I'm gonna hold you accountable. What's the plan?
Mr. Pelt, my plan
And we talking about your plan.
has to be collective with the rest of the board.
Okay, well, what's the plan
Okay.
for come disseminate down from the central office?
The plan coming from the central office is dealing with Alabama Department of Public Health. It appears that we have been in consultation with Dr. White, who is over infectious disease. I think Dr. White is one of the most informative doctors. Dr. White said, if you can't do it safely,
Don't do it at all.
don't do it at all. I remember him saying that. And I remember also hearing the superintendent say that we are not able to give or practice social distancing. So if you take what Dr. White said and put it close to what the superintendent says, basically he told us what he wasn't going to be able to do based on what Dr. White said.
So the doctor say don't do it unless you do it safely.
Then, hold on, let me finish.
Okay, yeah, because I'm
And
going to close one
then,
without.
and then you talked to me about what Dr. Crawford said,
Who is that?
who's a family family physician. But then to me, you had Dr. Albert White leading the discussion. So my whole thing is, if you want me to use the science, I'm going to use the science with you. In September, the numbers were 8 and 9% over the 14-day threshold. At this point, we are at 13.96% from BamaTracker.com.
13.9.
And this is the numbers as of today, right now. So when you look at that, I'm going to give you the facts, and I want you to be able to make that decision. If you gonna use the science to justify shutting it down,
use the science to keep. Yeah, I got you.
use the science to justify what you're doing, because the science is not gonna lie. Now, as a pastor, preacher, I want to be able to say, God is speaking to us in many ways. And even information that I received today, I believe that God is speaking to us in many ways. And I believe that we can ignore it, and then we're going to face some trouble. I believe if we adhere to it, we will save much people alive. And I'm not just talking about physical, I'm talking about mental, I'm talking about emotional, I'm talking about all of those things that make up the whole total man. So if you're afraid, how can you teach your students the Pythagorean theorem? How are you going to teach your students about the Civil War? How are you going to teach your students about Newton's law of motion? You know what? The students are not going to get out of you what they need to get out of you. If you're going to use, my whole issue is if you're going to use the science to justify shutting it down, if the science doesn't say open it up, then you shouldn't open it up. And give the people the truth. Give them the truth. Guess what? I'm like anybody else. And I want my kids in school. You know why? I'm watching them ride around town. I'm seeing them out at the dam. I'm seeing them at the car washes. I'm seeing them at the stores. I'm seeing them there. And I even asked the superintendent, I said, why don't we need to do something about that, because if you on staggered and you just out and about, then we need to see it to enforce that type of curfew.
Truancy.
That truancy law. You know what I'm saying? Because you got work that you need to be doing. I understand they need to be there. I want them there, but I want them there safely.
Yeah.
And I want the numbers to be able to reflect that Tuscaloosa, Alabama, is doing what Tuscaloosa needs to do to get them there.
We have a lot of comments. Y'all keep commenting and keep using your voices and raising issues, and keep asking questions, because information is power and we have to be informed. Now, to go back a little bit, Matthew, and I still wanna answer on this one, and I don't think I gotta answer, but I want one. I'm like Mike Wallace. I want to answer. You said a video was put out that says we cannot exercise social responsibility.
Not that we can't. The video was
it said to exercise social responsibility.
Yes.
And what was the other part of that?
The video talked about going back to school, the opening of school. And for those of you who would like to view that video, it is at TuscaloosaCitySchool.com. You can look at it on your Facebook page.
We're going to share it.
Look at the video, and that video is putting the responsibility of social distancing
in the schools
on the individual.
Wow.
It's telling the parents. It's telling the parents, make sure you wash your hands at home and practice social distancing, and so that your kids can be safe, blah, blah, blah. However, it's almost like do as I say, not as I do, is what it boils down to. Parents practice social distancing and being safe. But when you come to school, which will maybe you come to school on October 19th, there's no way that we can social distance.
I still don't understand. I understand, but I'm trying to understand how that you can say it's safe enough to come to school, but it ain't safe enough to social distance. It's safe enough to come to school, but we got a lack of as you wrote down, we got a lack of protective gear. We got a lack of social distancing. We ain't got no substitutes, and there's no plan. But it's safe to come back to school. I'm trying to put that in my mind as an average parent that might be getting secondhand information from Facebook or from what they hear in the street. That's not clarity when it comes to getting information out to our community. I know we have been a real staunch advocate of schools in the Western Cluster and also Northridge Middle School. We go and work and do as much as we can as far as donating and stuff. But am I fighting I don't want to say a losing cause, but are we all fighting something that some other people don't might even care about?
This is what I would like to see.
Am I looking at? Please fix me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. This is the only thing I would say that I would like to see come from this. Parents, if you're concerned about your kids going back, flood the central office with phone calls and let them know, I'm not comfortable sending my kid back and getting your kid signed up for virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, Dr. Daria is talking to, according to him, he's talking to doctors and medical professionals and all that. That's fine. That's the front end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I deal with the back end of it. I deal with what happens after little Johnny go to school. And little Johnny is asymptomatic. Little Johnny may pass it on to his teacher, or little Johnny may bring it back home to his mama, his grandma, his granddad. And mama and grandma have some health issues already. So once it's passed on to grandma and mom and everybody, now I'm sending an arrangement conference with his auntie, making arrangements for his mom and his grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I hate to see. And it's happening over and over. Even when you get into the schedule, even if you have a schedule, look at, I keep pointing up the street to the UA. The UA said once these kids get out for Thanksgiving, you're not coming back.
Yeah, they come back.
You're not coming
Till
back
the
until
second
till
or the
spring.
third
Yeah,
week of January.
They're extending it by a week going into January.
Mm-hmm.
They're not thinking, okay, you got flu season, you're gonna go through that, you have Thanksgiving break. People gonna come in town, people gonna go out of town. Then we going right back into school.
Mm-hmm.
These numbers are going to spike. And this is not just a common cold. This is a deadly virus. And these numbers are not going down. They are not going down. It's not slowing down. It's gonna be horrific. It's gonna be horrific. But
So we pray it don't get to that point. Paul, you told us a passionate story last night on the call we was on about people you have in your profession you have laid to rest because of COVID and because of children or young adults or what have you, bringing it back home to their elderly parents, elderly grandparents, and it comes from the environment they was in, whether it was at school or surrounded from people from school. That was a passionate story, and I feel for families like that, and I hope that that's not the case here, but I know cases, Matthew, in other school systems that we work in, that children came to school or went to a basketball game or something like that, or football game, and contracted COVID and came back and gave it to their grandparents, and their grandparents passed away, or their parents passed away, even whole families passed away because of COVID. Is it something that we can do as concerned citizens to get maybe this face-to-face stopped while these numbers going up, just halt just for a few weeks, or let's just stay staggered for a while, at least to January or something, so we can, but what can we do as common citizens, as concerned citizens, parents?
Let me tell you what, and I keep talking about the choice,
Mm-hmm.
okay? If you feel that your child should not go, as Mr. Rollins alluded to, and he didn't allude, he said it, then you need to get on these phone calls and you flood the central office with calls. Now, if you want your child to go, that's up to you. That's your right.
Mm-hmm.
That's your right.
Mm-hmm.
That's your right to go. But also for those who are more sick with pre-existing conditions,
Mm-hmm.
I think that you need to be cognizant or mindful of the possibilities that may happen.
Because I got a lot of calls too, like you all said, of parents that didn't sign their kids up virtual for the whole semester. Now they call saying, well, how can I do it? How can I do it? So they can stay virtual. And I say, well, call, and all the answers they get, well, you can't.
But well, you know, and I'm gonna say this: the same way many parents advocated and pushed for their children to go face to face.
Same way.
That's the same way you call and you push for your children to be virtual. And I'm gonna say this: those parents that wanted their children face to face, they didn't just talk it.
They showed up at the board meeting.
They didn't just write it out and comment it on Facebook. They prepared. They planned. They put a video together. They sent it all over.
Sure did. I sure did.
They came and they had people speaking. If you listen, what I want for our communities that are suffering from people with pre-existing conditions, I want to see that grandmama come up to that board. I want to see that young mother who has to work countless hours to be able to provide a home and a lifestyle for her children. I want to see that father that says, you know what, me and my wife have to work, and so my child is going to grandmama's house, but my grandmama got sugar diabetes and got high blood pressure. I want to see them folk. I want to hear their stories. Because guess what? I give it to them. I give my hats off to those parents who want their children to go face to face. They planned, they prepared, and they executed. Communities, and then let me say this, Mr. Pell. When they heard me speak, they said, well, what are y'all needs for y'all community? And not only did, and many of them reached out and are meeting needs in the community, but guess what? They also have questions about the numbers and wanting to make sure that everything is accurate. And one thing that we want for everybody is accuracy, transparency, and choice.
Man, I'm still mystified on the whole thing. With our last few minutes, we almost been on an hour, but our last few minutes, I want you all to give us your closing statements on what you want to see going forward, how you want our schools to take, I'm not saying take it serious, but take this virus, this deadly virus, and put our babies in the best situation to get educated. So talk for a few minutes, a couple minutes on that in your closing statement.
I mean, it's hard to say that I have a closing statement because I still have so many unanswered questions. One question would simply be, is the Tuscaloosa City School System doing everything they can to protect our babies and to protect our teachers and our staff? I can answer that and say no. And I'm not the superintendent. I'm not working at the central office. You cannot tell me that you know definitely that you cannot social distance our babies, whether it's in the classroom or on the school bus getting to school.
Right.
You can't protect the school bus drivers. You can't protect our babies on the school bus. You know they can't social distance. So you're saying, well, maybe we just roll the windows down. It's about to be winter time. We're not gonna roll down the windows on the school bus. Don't touch the rails and check your temp. Are we doing everything we can to protect our babies? If we're doing everything we can to protect our babies and we can social distance, let's go for it. But I know we're not. Well, I know that the central office is. And that's my concern.
You know, and I'll say this, my concern going forward is that I want to see parents have that opportunity for choice. If you feel that your child is not going to be able to wear their mask properly, adequately socially distanced, and you know that people in your household have pre-existing conditions, I want you to make that call for yourself. If you decide that you want to send your child to school, listen, I've talked to doctors myself. Doctors have told me that the children, they're gonna be fine. Some of them may just have a coughing, but now we're seeing that children have died too now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just gonna be mindful.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, the percentages for children dying is really low. But guess what? For one person to die,
It's too many.
it's too many. You know, I'm concerned that choice for all is not being given. That's my, I want to see choice for all. If you want to go, I want you to go. If you don't want to go, I want to still make sure you get that same love, that same instruction from Tuscaloosa City Schools.
Well, thank you all for coming on today, contacting me about this, and I think it was a good conversation we had to have that was needed at an appropriate time. And with my closing minute, I just want to say to everybody that's watching, and you might watching live here or you're watching on the replay, be mindful of your own family's health when it comes to returning back to school face to face. You might not have signed up for virtual for the whole semester, but you can change that with one phone call. Don't think just because somebody tell you no, that's the end all and be all. Show up to board meetings. Tuesday night, 6 o'clock.
This coming Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, 6 o'clock. Show up to the board
If they
meeting.
don't cancel it.
If they don't cancel, but Tuesday night, 6 o'clock, show up to the board meeting. It's social distance, overflow rooms. Show up. Let your voices be heard. You have a voice, use it. And if you can't come to the board meeting, I got another option for you. 205-759-3700. Call 205-759-3700. And I speak with your superintendent, your assistant superintendent, your deputy superintendent. I speak to somebody. And they'll talk to you. If they don't talk to you the first time, keep calling. Keep calling. Keep calling. Get on Twitter. Tweet them. Hey, I called you. Answer the phone. Get on Facebook. I called. Answer the phone. Don't stop till you get an answer. Because your literal funeral can be happening within a week or two. My cousin contracted COVID. She stayed in the hospital less than a week. Her son traveled from Mississippi to see her. Saturday, he thought he was going to see her and go back home. The next Saturday, my friend right here put her in the ground. It's just that serious. So for the safety and welfare of your family, make your own decision. If you want to go, like Dr. Wilson said, you got that choice. But if you don't want to go, you're scared, make that phone call. Be proactive. Get busy. And I guarantee you can change. And we can also not only change the school demographic, how we're going back to school and going back the right way and be safe and all that stuff, but we can change our community. Just make that call. Thank you guys for coming on. Y'all got anything else to say? Thank you guys for coming on. Like and share. You had something, Paul? Okay. Like and share. And we see y'all next Monday. Let me say this. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock at the Benjamin Barnes Branch YMCA, we'll be having a job fair. We have 7 employers now. City Trends that's came on board. We have this Tuscaloosa Skill Trades where they're going to you can actually sign up for a 10-week course. Y'all young adults, young people, young adults, sign up for a 10-week course. They're going to be able to teach you trades so you get an apprenticeship on a job, whether it's construction,
awesome,
whether it's, yes sir, welding or something like that. And once you get through that course, you get the job. It's so easy, it's so simple. We got the Career Center that's going to be there. They say have literally hundreds of good paying jobs. We have automation services, I think it's LLP services. We got a lot of people that's going to be there. Jobs readily available and in hand. We're also going to have some mentors. So young men, y'all come out. Young women, y'all come out. If you just need somebody to talk to, somebody to guide you along, we'll be there to try to help you. We'll be social distance, face masks. All this stuff is required. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, Benjamin Barnes Branch YMCA. You had something, Matt?
No, sir.
Had something, Paul?
No, sir.
Thank you, guys. We'll see y'all later. Now I got to get up and stop because my assistant ain't here.